Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very powerful show coming right up with Carolin Hauser-Carson, and she's here today to talk with us about her new book, Blossom. Now, Carolin is a German-trained naturopathic doctor, humanistic psychotherapist, and family constellation facilitator and author. She's an internationally recognized speaker and teacher on the subjects of spirituality, emotional healing, and women's empowerment. So let's welcome to the show, Carolin.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, what a joy it is to have you here. And, I'm so glad that I got my hands on your book, Blossom. I think it's such a profound book. And before we dive into this, what started you on this path where you're kind of this guru for people healing themselves, especially when it comes to the sexual healing part?
I didn't start there actually. I wasn't born and thought as a child, I'm going to be a sexual healer. No, I was suffering eating disorders from 10 till almost into my early 20s. And during that time, I went through a lot of, obviously, soul despair, and it was a very dark time. And my parents, specifically my mom, really tried to get me to do all kinds of things to help me, from art therapy where I chiseled a rock to having an Indian saint bless me, but nothing helped. And I went to talk therapy and all kinds of, normal therapy, conventional therapy, and nothing helped. And then in my early 20s, I had a wake-up moment where I almost suffocated by trying to throw up the food, and realized that if I didn't change, I would never see 30, I would never have children, and I really, really, really wanted to have children. And so I kind of had an opening for something else to come in, and my mom, God bless her, invited me to go and check out a work that's called Family Constellations, and so I did go to that. It was like a weekend workshop, and I went there, and within 3 months after I had received a session at that workshop, the eating disorder had completely left me. And
wow!
At that point, it was a miracle because, like I said, for over 10 years I had tried to beat the eating disorders, and I'm very strong-willed, and I tried everything, and I would succeed for 2 days, and then it would just take over. It was just bigger, it was just the thing had power over me more than I had power over it, obviously. And so it was a miracle to me, and it saved my life. And at that point, I was kind of aimlessly not knowing what to do with my life and just waiting tables at a cafe at night. I'm from Germany, so I was still living there. And I had a friend of my boyfriend randomly walk by, and he saw that there weren't a lot of people in the restaurant. And he came in kind of just to keep me company because there weren't a lot of guests and not a lot to do. And we just somehow got talking, and I opened up to him and just shared with him what I had just gone through. And he said, "Oh my God, if you know of this, you have to make this your life's work." And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds good. It sounds good. Thanks for somebody telling me what I should do with my life. It kind of makes sense." And then I started looking into. I'm a high school dropout, so I couldn't go and study at the university, but I did find alternative schools that so basically I learned how to be a naturopathic doctor, which in Germany is a second degree down from being a regular doctor. When you're a naturopathic doctor, you're allowed to treat people. You're just not allowed to do surgeries, and you're not allowed to do prescription drugs, and you're not allowed to treat infectious diseases. But other than that, you're allowed to work with people, and you're also allowed to do psychotherapy with people and are allowed to touch them while you're doing psychotherapy. And that was really important to me because I had learned how important the connection between the body and the soul was at that point. And so then in my early 20s, I was one of the youngest naturopathic doctors in Germany, and started to practice, fell in love with an American, followed him to the States. That relationship didn't last very long, but I did meet my first husband and had my first child, my daughter, Maya. And life was starting to feel, I finally had a child, which I wanted so much, and life was starting to feel good. And then when my daughter turned 3, my memories of early sexual abuse all of a sudden came back. And so with that happening, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because you hear that happening a lot for sexual abuse survivors.
Yeah, and my explanation is that when you're ready, like I was in a space, where I had the time actually and the resources to process, whereas if it would have happened, if I would have found out before, it might have thrown me too much, right? So in my own journey, when I see people, I've seen that you only get as much as you can take in terms of, what you find out or healing challenges and so forth. And so that was very much the case for me. I was in a place where I was, emotionally much more stable and a much more better place when I found out. But it still threw me for a hoop, and luckily I was in connection with a spiritual teacher, and I just reached out to him and told him what had just happened, and he said to me, again, it was another man who kind of said to me, hey, maybe this happening has to do with your purpose, like you've spent 10 years studying about healing, you know a lot about healing now, and now finding this out, maybe, there's something to it. And for me, I had my idols, my role models had been, even though I was from Germany, had been like Deepak Chopra and Marianne Williamson, and like spiritual teachers had been my role model. So I wanted to be like them, Eckhart Tolle, for example, right? So I knew I wanted to write a book, I just didn't know, and I wanted to teach on something, I just didn't know what it was. And so with me realizing that I had been abused starting from age 3 on, first of all, it made sense why I had developed the eating disorders, because it never made sense why I developed them at 10, really. And because my parents divorced when I was 11 and 12, and then I had sexual abuse when I was around that age too, but the eating disorders had started before, right? So for me, a lot of pieces fell into place, and then also it became really clear that this is actually part of what I'm meant to do in this world as my work. And so I took a group of women on the journey with me. I kind of conceptualized a healing journey based on everything that I had learned, and then took them over 7 weeks through the steps, and then compiled their feedback, kind of made it better, and took the parts that were really useful and left the parts that weren't so useful, and then basically created the book and published the book. So that's the long story of how the book was born and how I came to do this work.
Well, and how, it's so important because there's that journey that goes with it, and especially when we talk in regards to this topic, because when we talk about sexual abuse, a lot of people, it's becoming more open that people are talking about it, but it's been such a taboo topic for so long.
Yes.
It's like, we don't chat about that. You just suck it up and deal with it, which is it just doesn't work,
Yeah, I published my book 6 years ago, and now I'm invited, and now I'm welcomed, and now people want to talk about it. So I'm glad. It took a little while, but I'm glad that it is so, because part of the reason why it's such a taboo is because it's connected to a lot of shame and guilt, and you might know this. Probably know this. Shame and guilt are very low vibrational frequencies. They're life destroying, right? And so for the people in power, they've known this. People in power know about vibrational frequency. They've known about the universal laws. And so they've also known that when you keep people in shame and guilt, you really keep them out of power and basically disempowered and much better people are much better followers when they're not in their power, right? So, this is not, sexual abuse is a very systemic thing for a reason, because it keeps us all disempowered. It keeps the perpetrators are just as disempowered as the victims. It keeps us all in a field of negativity where we can't rise and live lives and create an earth where abundance is the norm for everybody.
Yeah. Well, and let's say, because I know you, of course, you have your fabulous book, and let's say someone reaches out to you and they're going, they kind of say the same thing, like, I'm just now remembering the sexual abuse that took place when I was a child that I had no memory of until now, and I've had all these problems through life. What is some of the first advice you would give somebody that's going through that?
I would tell them to buy the book.
Of course, yeah. So you gotta go pick up a copy of Blossom, yeah.
because the reason being, because there's there's certain things, obviously I know how to do family constellations now, and I take people through the process, and it's very effective. And at the same time, what most people don't know is that when trauma happens, it feels like it's a psychological thing, right? Because you try to process it with your mind, and we as a society kind of deal with it as like a mental thing, but it is actually it's an assault on your nervous system, and it literally destroys, or so the image that I give to people is, imagine your body is a house, and when trauma happens, it's like lightning strikes a house. So when lightning strikes a house, circuits melt, the electricity can't run anymore properly, appliances don't work, the wires might be fried, literally, melted and fried and burned. And so it's the same inside of you. Your nervous system is a physical system where the energy currents run that help you and your body function and help you to, help your brain to work and all of that. And when trauma happens, it's as if the wires, the lines in which your electrical currents and your energy runs get fried. And so nobody outside of you can actually mend this. It takes your own. It takes you being in your body and you learning specific ways of being in your body to tend to your nervous system. And so, that's where people basically where people can reclaim their power, because nobody else can do that for you. I guess somebody can teach it to you. Yeah. So that's like when I talk to people, my main thing is that they understand that it's not about psychological processing and so forth. It's really about them learning to work with their own energetic system.
Well, and I think that's so important because, when someone, I can imagine, is going through finding this information out and learning about it, that it must kind of throw them into this state, oh gosh, I was a victim during this time, I should have done something different. And so to be able to kind of reclaim their energetic power is got to put them in just a place where they're feeling better about themselves,
Yeah, and in my philosophy, basically, the way I see it is that we, at any given time, there's many different universes around us that are possibilities that could become our reality. And we're all connected to one of the universes that is our optimum. I call it our paradise. Like the life where we basically are living our purpose, where we're fulfilled, where we have the relationships that fill us up, where we feel just really happy and good and have a lot of pleasure in all areas of our life. And I believe that we're all meant to live in that kind of reality. And for us to be able to live in that reality, what needs to happen, or the reason why we're not in that reality right now, is because that reality requires us to be at a different vibrational frequency than we are right now. Right? And so when you make your focus on learning to do things that make you feel good and better, that's actually the way that you navigate yourself towards being or ending up in your paradise, if that makes sense.
No, that makes complete sense. And I love how in your book you talk about that you are not broken, and I think that's so important for people who are going through this to hear.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that they are broken, and what's actually been broken is the connection between you and your soul and your spirit. We as human beings are a threefold being. We have a body, and then we have a soul, and then we have a spirit. And as I see it, like the body is the thing that's on the earth. Our soul is the thing that connects the body and the spirit, and the spirit is the part of it that is eternal and timeless and really just energy. Right? And so the soul is what keeps it together, and when trauma happens, that connection between the soul and the body loosens, right? And so it feels like we've lost our soul, or our soul has been destroyed or something. But it's actually just that connection between the soul and the body has somewhat loosened, and to learning to come back into your body, there's ways that connection can be mended. So you as a whole aren't broken, right? It's just the connection has been broken.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, a lot of times people don't really realize how energetic it is, and I love that you talk about that.
Yes, a lot of people have read The Secret, or, most people know about manifesting and the law of attraction and so forth, and with that they think that it all has to do with just thinking better thoughts. But the spiritual laws and also the law of attraction is an energetic law. Right? It's about energy. It's about becoming a vibrational match to law of attraction is a law, and it works like attracts always like. But your thinking is not the main magnet. Your body, our body is made out of millions and trillions of cells, and every cell actually vibrates at a certain frequency. And so when trauma happens, your cells get impacted, and your cells start vibrating at a low vibrational frequency. And so just imagine, just in terms of size, how big your brain is and how big the rest of your body is. Right, if you were a magnet, which would you want to be more positive, your just the little brain part or your entire body?
Yeah, for sure, I'd want to be in charge of just all of it,
Yeah, and a lot of people think the subconscious is something outside of ourselves. No, the subconscious lives in our body. Right, and so working with the subconscious is somewhat daunting because we don't really have access to it. But if we look at it just like as energy in the energy fields, then it just always comes back to, okay, what can I do today to feel a little better? Because when you feel a little better, it's an indicator that your energy is rising to another vibrational level. And for somebody who's in depression, getting angry is progression. Staying in anger is not a progression then, but or for somebody who is hopeful to actually get to a place where they can say, I can do it, and get into action or into acceptance is huge. And the thing that people don't understand is that, we think we have mindsets or we have patterns and so forth, and we think like they're inside of us. But the reality is that there's vibrational frequencies and fields around us. Let's say shame and guilt, to give you an example, which is very low, it vibrates at 30. And so if we carry a lot of suppressed shame and guilt in ourselves and our subconscious and our body, we go into resonance with that field of shame and guilt, right? So the law of attraction, the law of resonance. And so at that point, we're only capable of receiving, that's what we're attracting, we're only capable of receiving thoughts that are in connection with a state of mind of shame and guilt, right? They're very self-destructive. Oh, it's all your fault, and you're never going to amount to anything, and why you're even trying, and you're a worthless piece of, and so on. And we think these are our thoughts, but the reality is we are vibrating at a certain state, and because of that, we have dialed in basically to the radio station that plays the music that goes in tune with what we're vibrating at. And so that's why it's so empowering to realize that all you just need to do is really learning how to shift your internal frequency. You don't have to do mindset work even. You don't have to process any emotional anything. You don't have to monitor your thoughts. You don't have to do affirmations. All you have to do is work on your vibrational state, because when you do that, you get uplifted, and then let's say, you get yourself into the 200s. All of a sudden, you're thinking very different thoughts, and then you're able to actually take actions because you feel like you're capable. And then when you're able to take actions, all of a sudden your entire life transforms.
Yeah, things move forward. And I know in your book you talk about how we need to reconnect with our wounded inner child, and is that part of the reason why, is so that we can get to a point where we're at a different vibration level?
Yes, yeah, because our inner child is just another way of, the wounded inner child is part of our subconscious, right? It's the repressed part of ourselves, and so there's just a way of externalizing it and making it conscious, and realizing that this is not you, it is a part of you that needs your healing and your attention, but it's not who you are often, because oftentimes our life is really run by these younger parts of ourselves, and it constantly gets us into trouble, because just imagine a 2-year-old running your life, right? A 2-year-old gets overwhelmed A 2-year-old doesn't know how to make money. A 2-year-old doesn't know how to cook. A 2-year-old doesn't know how to have a relationship. A 2-year-old doesn't know how to have sex. A 2-year-old doesn't know anything much. Of course it would feel overwhelmed all the time.
Yeah, like it's just too much all the way. Yeah, and you can understand where that would be. When we look at that and we start working on that, how much a benefit that can be.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that they're really operating from these younger wounded. I mean, I didn't. I never could understand why it was so hard for me to make money, or why my relationships didn't work until I learned all of this and realized, wow. And to this day, when I get into trouble in my life, it's usually because something got triggered, and I'm looking at the world with the eyes of my 4-year-old or 5-year-old or 2-year-old.
Carolyn, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because it's something that I've heard of before, and I don't think a whole lot of people talk about, just in regards to how things trigger us, and then all of a sudden we're right back at that age when the abuse started, and we're just kind of confronting all these feelings again, as if it's at the same time as everything's just happening just now. So okay, well, we are going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Carolin Hauser-Carson in regards to her book, Blossom. We will be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge, teaching beyond conventional wisdom. Her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed, and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 1-2-3 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
There are nearly 2 million Americans living with amputation. Many live right here in San Antonio. Becoming an amputee can be scary, frustrating, isolating, but there's no reason to feel alone. The San Antonio Amputee Foundation is here to help support you and guide you toward resources such as home and car modifications and even prosthetic limbs. For more information or to make a donation, visit saamputee.org. We'll help you live a full, active life, one step at a time. San Antonio Amputee Foundation, healing limbs, hearts, and souls.
Welcome back to Mornings with Marianne. Our special guest today is Carolin Hauser-Carson, and she's been talking with us in regards to her new book, Blossom. So, Carolin, I do have a question, and it's something that we hear often enough. It's on the topic of forgiveness. So, when someone has experienced some type of sexual abuse during their lifetime, how important is it to get to a place of forgiveness, and is that even possible?
I don't work with forgiveness for a very specific reason, and that is when somebody does something to you. Well, first of all, from the family constellation work, we really look at every person being equal. Even if they did something wrong, they still have the same value as a human being. And in order for healing to happen, balance needs to be brought back. And in terms, when trauma happens, or when somebody did something that was wrong, the balance is brought back by them actually owning what they did. So not by us forgiving, but by them owning. And when they do that, then another way of looking at it is, if we forgive somebody, we basically put ourselves on a higher level and kind of say, I forgive you. I'm doing something for them again. I'm forgiving you. Right? What needs to happen is for them to say, I'm sorry that I wronged you, and actually they have to energetically take the burden. They have to live with the consequences, right? And so for you, in order for you to be at peace, it's important to say, what you did was wrong, you wronged me, without blaming, but that's the reality. What you did was wrong, and you wronged me, and then whatever truth is, there's sometimes there's surprising truth when you, in my case, when I really got to the bottom of, my sex abuse with my grandfather, who I loved very much. The truth in my case was that I allowed it out of love. Like, I didn't say anything out of love. I let it happen out of love. So that was my part in it. And even though I was only 3, it's still my part in it, without any blame. And his part was that what he did was wrong. And so there is no forgiveness needed, because it is just seen for what it is, if that makes sense. And that kind of, that brings the healing and the balance back, because everybody gets put in the right place. Basically, right? The perpetrator really has to live with the consequence. So in some ways, actually, it's easier for a victim, because it's easier for us to regain our innocence and find self-love. For somebody who's done something really bad, it's a much harder journey to forgive. They have to come to peace with themselves and find a way that they can love themselves. That's much harder, I think. I can see where you're talking about how we view people as individuals, that we're able to move the energy into kind of right energy with what's going on. So when you work with people, do you ever get someone that feels like, gosh, that's a pretty long stretch for me to do that? I don't know if I can get to that place, because I like to tend my little garden of resentment or anger or whatever the deal is. Not so much. I mean, I get people that don't want to, they're like, I don't want to deal with it because I have too much going, people that are successful in their lives, and maybe have health challenges or relationship challenges, but things are going fairly well in other areas of their life. They're like, I don't want to upset everything else right now, because, so they're like, I'm going to not deal with it right now. Right now is not the good time, because, I have too much going on at work, or, I'm going to get married next month, or whatever. That's more the objection. It's more like, not right now is not the good time, because people think that it's going to impact them negatively, that they're going to go down this rabbit hole, and it actually doesn't have to be that way. And the way I work with people is in retreats. So I take them for 4 days, and usually, really, in that 4 days, they can move through the process as fast as, it would have taken them 10 years in therapy, and probably get to a more resolved place than with the 10 years of therapy. So it doesn't have to take very long, and you don't have to, there might be a day or two, but you would be in a health container where that's okay, where you would feel discombobulated maybe, but not where you would feel, most people are really afraid of the emotions, right? We're afraid of intense emotions, and that the emotions are going to kill us. And in reality, it's the resistance that will eventually kill us, because we do all kinds of things to not feel. We develop all kinds of addictions and so forth. The emotions themselves are actually, when you learn how to just be present present with them, they're not scary. They're just sensations in our body. This was a big one for me because I was so afraid of emotions, so afraid that they were going to take over and, yeah. And then it's like, ooh, now what do I do with this? Yeah, because you do see sometimes when people have these realizations that like, I've heard people describe how it feels like the floodgates are opened and the light feels like it's turning upside down with, reasonably so, Yeah. Yeah, and that's why it's important, to find somebody that really knows, has really experience in trauma work, and there's not that many, regular talk therapists don't always have that expertise. Peter Levine is one of the pioneers that really did a lot of studies on trauma and trauma release from the body and the physical body and the nervous system. And so, if you're working with a therapist, please don't know this work, and when you're looking for somebody to help you with, make sure that they are aware of the somatic aspect and really do somatic work. Come and work with me. But find somebody. It is extremely difficult to do this on your own because it involves our instinctual brain. When trauma happens, your brain chemistry gets altered, and you get put into a place where the brain that's normally that's only there to protect you in life-threatening situations is now the brain that runs your life. And the instinctual brain is so strong that no amount of willpower can do anything. It takes over without you noticing, and you're going to be helped by it or run by it. And so that's why it's important to have somebody that knows how to help you shift and work with your brain chemistry. I would love for you to share with us, because you mentioned it before, the family constellation, you're a facilitator for that. Can you share with us a little bit of what that is? Because that's actually, until I read your book, that was a really new process for me. Yeah, part of why I wrote the book was my intention to make this work more popular, so yay. It is very well known. Very well known in Germany. It's extremely powerful. So the story goes that the men who kind of created the body of work, he was a missionary and observed the Zulu tribe. He was a missionary and a psychotherapist, and he observed the Zulu tribe when a tribe member was sick or a tribe member did something that was wrong, did something criminal, for example. They didn't single out that person. They came together as a tribe and worked as a tribe through it. So that's kind of the premise. And then I'm going to just describe my own experience with it because it illustrates it pretty well. So when I went to my first family constellation, I basically just joined a weekend seminar with 16 other people that I didn't know, and a couple that was facilitating the group. And in the group there were people with all kinds of issues, and all we knew about was why they were here. So some were going through a divorce, others had cancer, and then I was there to get help with my eating disorders. And so when it was my turn, the facilitators just asked me to pick people we were sitting in a circle in a big space, and they just asked me to pick 6 different people, one for my eating disorder, and then the rest for my immediate family, so my siblings, my parents, and then for me. So there's 6 people that I picked from the audience, and then they asked me to place them in the room, kind of based on my inner picture. So this is why this work is called family constellations, because it started out really doing family dynamic work, and you would use representatives and place them in the room. And so then the facilitator basically just started asking these people, and these people all of a sudden knew things that blew my mind, and to this day it's still really fascinating. Now I know why they know, and I've done this for 20 years, and I've gotten a little bit more insight into it, but some of it is still a mystery also, because all I know is it works. So people that are used as the representatives, they can connect, or they connect to a field that we in the constellation world call the known field. It's a field where everything is known. Some people might call it maybe the Akashic records. Other people might call it a omniscient presence, consciousness. It's a field that knows everything, basically. And these people, because they're not connected to you and your story and your family, and don't have any buy-in, so to speak, they can just really neutrally report what they're feeling and say what they're feeling. Right? So the representative from me could say, I did it out of love because there was no emotional connection. I could have never gotten to that place in my regular life with my regular grandfather, right? So in the case of my eating disorder, what actually came out was that the eating disorder was the thing that kept me alive when I had felt that it was the thing that was killing me for 10 years. And so that shifted, shifted the dynamic completely. And so once I saw the truth, basically, it was just gone. And it happens, so the scientific explanation for why this is so powerful, this work, is that basically we have images in our subconscious, or our subconscious works on images, and based on these images, we create our lives. So the subconscious always tries to match the image that we're holding in our subconscious, because that's what makes us feel safe, and the subconscious always wants to keep us safe. And so then it's hard to create something new, because the subconscious holds, if the subconscious holds that it's safer for you to be alone, then it's really hard to create a relationship, because the subconscious wants to keep you safe, and alone is not safe. And so what the constellation does, it replaces that picture and replaces it with the healthy picture, with the truth. Like a lot of times people think their parents don't love them, or a lot of people actually walk through the world pretending they don't have any parents because there's so much turmoil, emotional turmoil. And so when that happens, we just create a lot of negative information. So the essence is that in the process, the negative picture gets replaced with a positive one, and then guess what? If being with the person, if love is the picture that the subconscious is holding, you don't have to put effort into creating love, because the subconscious wants to keep you safe. It wants to match that image. So it will do anything it can to make sure that you have love in your life. And so that's why it seems so miraculous, because the subconscious is so powerful, and this process literally, it takes 45 minutes, and I've seen issues resolved that people have carried for their entire life sometimes, that they weren't even aware of. And so it saves tremendous amounts of time, suffering, money, and for you, as a client, you just basically watch that process. It gets a little emotional and touching sometimes, but there's no catharsis or reliving of the trauma, or it's a very gentle approach. Yeah. Well, and it makes such a big difference, because when you look at abuse and how we hold on to that, my guess is that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the expert in this field, is like how you're saying that people are releasing trauma they didn't even know that they had, but they know that something's going on. Life isn't quite as perfect as they would like. Yeah, we can't really know what's in our subconscious, but what we know is that 95% of what we create in our life, is created by our subconscious. So what that means is we can see by the results, the results tell us that something isn't right. Right, so if you're having trouble in love, if you're having the same experience over and over and over and over, what we call a pattern, that can show you that there's something in your subconscious that is creating that. That we need to really take a strong look at. Now, can this same process be used, let's say, because I know we're specifically talking about sexual abuse, but can it be used for any type of trauma that someone has experienced? Yeah, it can even be used for things like you want to look at your relationship to money, or you want to look at your relationship, you can look at health, food, anything that has a relationship to anything can be made visible with this process. So it can be actually a lot of fun using it. It doesn't have to just be trauma healing, but you can see the truth. I've done this with organizations when there's, when, for example, a school having trouble keeping up their enrollment. we were able to see what kind of why the reason. And sometimes it's really strange. Sometimes it's the building had lost something and it needed healing, or it's miraculous what comes out sometimes. I had one case where somebody was suffering from asthma for a very long time, and just never could get any relief, and then we did a constellation. And the beautiful thing about the constellations is if we don't know something, the constellation will bring the people, the representatives will know that something is missing, and we can bring in pieces, and bringing somebody for a piece where we don't know what it is, the people will know what it is. So in this case, I constellated and maybe had somebody step in for his lung, somebody for himself, and then it was very clear that something was missing, and we brought in that piece that was missing, and it turned out to be an ant who had been, a great ant who had been buried alive and was suffocated, and that was just never known, right? Because nobody realized that had happened. And so her soul really needed the acknowledgement of that happened, and that's why he was carrying the asthma. And once it was acknowledged, and once everybody realized what had happened, the asthma left. And there's so many examples of things like that, where it's like something completely different than you think while you're having problems. And it also makes you getting to realize. It also makes you realize how we're really a conglomerate of everything that came before us. And so, if you're experiencing struggles in your life, it might not even be because of what you've experienced. Yeah, it could be something generational. Yeah. I find that fascinating. I find that absolutely fascinating. A lot of people look at, gosh, it's really common. You hear people say, well, my great-grandmother had a bad knee and I've got a bad knee. Yeah. Like, we don't have to have one, maybe. It could be that energetic thing that's going on that person's carrying that. Yeah, and also what most people don't realize is that things really have an impact. So let's say, your mother might have had a miscarriage. Well, you might know it, you might not put actually a lot of, you might cognitively know it and you don't think it was a big deal. And then when you actually look at it, it could have actually screwed up your entire female lineage, because your mom maybe completely self-punished herself, cut herself off from her creative life force, passed it on to you. Your mom wasn't really present for you because of the pain that caused and the damnation, and then you overcompensated and became your mom's mother, basically, and you were really never able to be a child, and so you never actually learned to receive, and now you're having trouble with creating a life. Right, so it's kind of snowballs from there. Yeah, and we kind of like brush it off. Oh yeah, my grandparents were in the war, or my father lost his brother, and we don't realize how these things truly impact the person that it happens to, and then us as a result. Yeah, in reverse, then when you have the constellations, let's say you're really feeling stuck in your life and you don't know why, but the constellations will reveal it in like 45 minutes. You don't have to spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of trying to figure out what it is, because you won't. Consciously, because it's something that you might not even know that happened in the past. Or something that's, and if you look interesting, it could have been, maybe a mean teacher saying, because I've heard this from a lot of different people, saying, well, you'll never be an artist, or you'll never amount to anything. Just people saying these things, and then the child or the student takes this to heart, going, gosh, I'm still struggling with this. Because I've heard these over and over again, where people are like, I had one teacher that said this, or my one parent that said this. Yeah, and the only reason why it could impact you at that level is because, probably there was somebody in your lineage who was supposed to be an artist and sacrificed himself and just became a miner or, a policeman or whatnot, and didn't live there. Their true purpose. I absolutely believe that we're all carrying here, like I said in the beginning, to live a life where we fulfill our purpose and experience abundance and happiness, whatever that means to us, For somebody, abundance means having a huge mansion and servants and 5 cars, and to somebody else it just means that you have your little house and a garden, and, there's no judgment in what it means, but I believe that we all came here to have the most pleasurable experience that we can have. I don't think we came here to suffer and struggle. That's a kind of myth that we've all bought into.
Yeah, I'm not for that either. I choose not that, for sure. I mean, and kind of to bring this full circle, when people are having issues with trauma and sexual abuse, at least there's a way out. It doesn't have to be this cycle that continues and continues, and I thought that your book was a very good resource for people to make that next step to kind of rebuilding their lives in a new way.
Yeah, because a lot of the time I think people feel like it's a death sentence. Like that happened and now their chance of having a good life is gone. And that is not so. I'm living proof, I am living the dream. I am living the dream. It took a little while, but it's absolutely possible. Once I learned about energy and really learned to make my own energy management my top priority. And so I actually do have a couple free gifts on my website that will help people work with their own energy and up-level their own energy, which is, that's really the key in everything I teach people. And it might seem really simple, and that's I think a lot of people think it needs to be more complicated, but it really isn't. It's just it's a skill that needs practice, and with any new skill, in order to master something, I think somebody said it takes 10,000 hours, so it's just a matter of just practicing. It's like practicing a new language.
Well, so tell us a little bit about these gifts that you have on your website and what your website is, so people can learn a little bit more about that and participate.
Yeah, so my website is called womenintheflow.com. And the tools, the only tool you'll ever need to manifest everything that you want in life, but what it really is it's the process that will help you transform negative energy that has gotten stuck in your system through trauma or other things into positive ones. It's an alchemical process. In the olden days, the mystics and the alchemists were looking for a process how they could turn lead into gold, and what they're actually talking about is turning something negative into something positive. They actually talk about this process of taking negative energy and turning it into positive energy, and our bodies are amazing instruments that can do it. And so this tool will teach you how you can use your body as an instrument, the manual for your body basically, so that you can use your body as an instrument to transmute that energy. And, just to give you an example, I started using this tool really consistently about 4 years ago. And so since then I've healed from chronic fatigue and burnout. I was on the couch not being able to get off for 5 months. Found my divine partner, bought a house in the Caribbean, served 5,000 people. My clients that learn this and know how to do this have similar results. They're making businesses, they have turned their marriages around, they've attracted amazing clients, and they are in a place where flow and an experience of life being pleasurable and fulfilling is the norm. Like, it's not stressful, and they're not exhausted and overwhelmed and run down and stressed anymore. And so if that's what you want, if that's what you want for your life, to start practicing. It's about practicing. If you practice simple things over time, they will create a huge difference. Like if you start out on a boat and you're just one little degree off from your original, where you were originally going, over time you'll end up in a completely different destination. That's kind of the idea behind it.
I love that. I like how that kind of just, it gives such a great visual on how people can, have a healing process.
Yeah, we always think it has to be so extreme, but it doesn't actually. It's just little steps over time, and then consistency. It's like consistent maintenance of your energy system. And my website is womenintheflow.com.
Perfect. Well, and so your book is also, Blossom, is available on your website. Where else is your book available? Is it on Amazon?
Yes, it's on Amazon. And then also they have a Kindle version. I would encourage people to get the paperback though, because it's really a book that's meant to go with you and that you can write and mark and stuff like that. So
People can start on their own healing journey. Well, Carolyn, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you, Carolyn. What a powerful discussion that was. I know sometimes it's difficult to talk about this topic, but it's important to have these discussions so that healing can take place. For those that are looking to connect with Carolyn, you can do that at carolinhauser.com. The website will be just listed below. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.